I don't remember the abduction. No one does. 1 minute, I was walking out of a bar in New Boston after my shift at the dry docks, thinking about leftover chili and a bottle of cheap whiskey. The next minute, I was blinking under violet light, lying on my back in perfect silence. The air wasn't air. It was filtered, processed. Not sterile, exactly, but like everything had been cleaned too many times. No breeze, no scent. Just a kind of empty stillness that prickled against the skin. I sat up. Around me, dozens of others were waking, 2 men, women, teens, elders, every race, every background, a weird cross-section of Earth's population, gathered like a sample group in some science experiment. Most were just staring, confused. One guy, P-U-K-E-D. The room was massive, like an aircraft hangar, but made of glass and brushed metal. Above us, the ceiling curved into a dome, with thin seams glowing faint blue. There were no visible doors, no windows, and no one else, no guards, no scientists, just us. I remember the silence most of all. Then a voice came not through speakers, into our heads. "Welcome," it said. "You are safe." I wish that had been a lie. But it was worse. It was the truth. Over the next few days, we learned the rules. We didn't see our captors, not at first. But food appeared every morning, real food. Meats, grains, vegetables, no ration packs, no pills. Beds lined the walls, soft and warm. Medical booths activated on command, healed cuts and bruises with glowing mist. At first, people thought it was some twisted utopia. "Maybe the aliens saved us," one woman said, "from climate collapse or war." Some agreed, some cried, some just wandered in a daze. I didn't trust any of it. I've worked shipyards my whole life. I know when something's built for comfort and when it's built for control. Everything was rounded. No sharp corners, no tools, nothing you could use as a weapon. The walls were soft but unbreakable. The light never dimmed. There were no shadows. But it was the air that kept bothering me. It wasn't just clean. It was neutral, like it had been scrubbed of bacteria, allergens, and identity. After a week, the first door opened. It wasn't a door at all, just a section of the wall that shimmered and vanished. A group of 6 men and women walked through, dressed in identical white jumpsuits, eyes wide and glassy like they'd been crying for hours. Everyone cheered. We thought they'd escaped. They didn't say a word. They just walked in slow, like their limbs weren't fully theirs anymore. One collapsed. One vomited black fluid. 2 others curled up on the floor like infants and started sobbing. We never saw them again. That's when people started whispering about the taking. Every 3 days, another group was chosen. Always 6, always random. The wall would open, the light would turn blue, and the names would be spoken into our minds. Then, they'd walk out. Some struggled, some cried, but none of them ever returned. I started counting the days, started mapping the dome in my head, started noting which walls shimmered, where the food appeared, when the lights flickered. There had to be patterns. There weren't, because we weren't in a prison. We were in a pen. It was Old Man Russo who first said it aloud. "They're fattening us." Everyone laughed at him, called him paranoid, said we were being tested, or studied, or trained. But Russo had raised pigs his whole life on a farm outside Syracuse. He knew the signs. They want calm. They want meat that doesn't fight, that doesn't stress. You stress the animal, the meat goes bitter. Still, no one wanted to believe it, until Tyler cracked the wall. He was an engineer, late 30s, quiet, always pacing. He figured out the med booths had maintenance panels, not tools but wires, soft conduits, fiber optics that could be peeled with enough patience, and something sharp. He used his own fingernails, bled for hours. He turned one of the panel plates into a makeshift wedge, thin and strong enough to pry into the seam of a service hatch in the floor near the food dispensers. It opened. I was there when it happened. A hiss. A panel popped loose. Beneath it, a tunnel. Low, dark, warm. We didn't hesitate. 5 of us crawled in me. Tyler, Russo, a nurse named Lexa, and a kid barely 20. Mason. We crept through pipes and coolant lines for what felt like hours. The tunnels were moist and warm, smelled like steam and blood. Then we found the window. It wasn't a real window, more like a viewport, a black, glassy oval recessed into a metallic wall. No buttons, just presence activated. When we approached, it lit up, and we saw rows upon rows of domes, each one filled with humans, thousands, maybe millions, stacked like eggs in a farm tower that stretched miles in every direction. Between the domes moved machines, floating, tentacled, smooth and silent. They carried bodies, not all of them alive. Some still moved, twitched, most didn single quotes, and behind it all, towering in the background like gods made of bone and mercury, the keepers. We saw one clearly. It stood 2 stories high, its head a lattice of glowing threads, its arms long and jointless, no face, just slits, like vents. Its fingers never touched the bodies. They hovered above the skin, and the bodies glowed. Tyler whispered, "What the hell is it doing?" Rousseau didn't speak, because we all knew it was feeding, not just on flesh, on something else. Lexa said it first, our memories. The kid, Mason, threw up. We backed away, sealed the hatch, returned to the pen, hearts pounding, heads spinning. Tyler wanted to tell the others. I said no, not yet. We needed proof. We needed a plan. We needed weapons. But it was too late. They came for Mason 2 days later. When the wall opened and his name was called, he screamed, fought, begged. They took him anyway. He didn't walk back in. He was carried, body limp, face blank. He was dropped at the center of the dome like trash, and when we ran to him, he whispered one thing: "They eat what we love." Then he died. That was when the truth sank in. They weren't harvesting bodies. They were harvesting memory, emotion, attachment, love, loss, rage, anything that made us human. They weren't feeding on the meat. They were feeding on the meaning in the meat. And that's when I understood the worst part. They weren't torturing us. They weren't cruel. They didn't hate us. They just saw us the way we see livestock, a resource, nothing more. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. Tyler was building something in the dark with wires from the med booth. Russo sharpened the metal plate into a jagged edge. Lexa studied the lights for flicker patterns. We had no weapons, no map, no soldiers. But we had one thing left: hunger. Not for food, for payback. We wouldn't die in a pen. We wouldn't be consumed. We would be remembered. We burned the body ourselves, not because of ritual, not because of fear of infection, because we didn't want them to have it. Whatever they were, whatever they fed on it, needed something more than blood and bone. Mason had loved, he'd felt. That made him dangerous to them, even in death. So we wrapped him in sheets from the sleeping quarters, soaked them in alcohol from the med bays, and lit the pyre using the frayed ends of a damaged power cable Tyler shorted with his bare hands. The fire didn't burn long. The walls hissed. Vents opened and sprayed neutralizing foam in seconds, but the gesture was done. We'd denied them their meal, and that was the first act of war. The others still didn't believe us. Not fully. Some thought we were crazy. Some thought we'd hallucinated from stress. But more and more, the doubt began to crack. It wasn't just the disappearances anymore. It was the people who returned, blank-eyed, emotionless. They didn't speak, didn't eat, didn't even resist when they were chosen again. They were hollowed. That's what Lexa started calling them, and the rest of us. We were the ones who still screamed in our sleep, who cried for lost families, who remembered Earth, which meant we were next. The random selection process had rules. We figured that out fast. It was always 6 people. Never anyone who'd recently shown emotional distress. Never anyone violent. Never those who were too numb to feel. They were targeting the richest memories first. Tyler guessed it was a conservation strategy. They were keeping the feedstock population balanced, never triggering too much fear or despair, because that would ruin the yield. We were being psychologically managed, like livestock, or worse, like data streams. I wanted to hit something, anything, but there was nothing to hit, only padded walls and seamless steel, until Russo got cut. It was an accident. A sharp edge on the panel we'd been prying open earlier. Just a thin line of blood across his palm. We rushed to help, but the med booth activated before we could. It scanned him, sprayed mist, then paused. A new panel opened, one we hadn't seen before. Inside was a small white cube. No markings, no label. It floated out, hovered over Russo's head, and emitted a soft hum. Lexa grabbed him and yanked him back. The cube hovered for a moment, then retracted and vanished. We all looked at each other. That wasn't healing. That was scanning Russo's blood. His pain had triggered something deeper in the system, something more direct. I think it's escalating, Tyler whispered. They're getting hungry. The next selection came early, 2 days instead of 3, but this time, one of the names called didn't go quietly. Her name was Annika, schoolteacher, mid-40s. Had a photo of her daughter etched into her necklace. When the wall opened and her name echoed through our minds, she clutched that necklace and screamed, "No." 2 hollowed ones approached her. We didn't know they could do that. They weren't just empty. They were tools, servants. We tried to stop them, but they moved fast, unnaturally fast. Strength that didn't match their bodies. 3 of us got knocked down. 1 broke a wrist. And then Russo stepped forward. He didn't speak. He just drove the jagged metal plate his makeshift shiv into the nearest hollowed man's throat. It didn't stop him, but it broke something. Not the skin, the silence. The moment the blood hit the floor, the lights changed. They turned red. An alarm wailed, not sound, but a feeling of pressure in the skull. And for the first time, they came. The true ones, the keepers. The wall dissolved, and they entered. We ran, not away, at them. Lexa grabbed the injured man and dragged him behind the beds. Tyler threw a piece of the metal panel like a discus. It bounced off the nearest keeper's shoulder like paper. Russo charged, screaming, blood still dripping from his hand. The keeper moved with fluid gray-snow steps. Just glide. Its arm lashed out like a whip. Russo didn't fall. He disintegrated, like ash scattered into wind, gone in a second. We froze. That wasn't technology. That wasn't punishment. That was consumption. The keeper turned toward me. Its face had no eyes, just that lattice of pulsing threads. It tilted slightly, and I felt my thoughts tug. Memories, a childhood dog, my mother's voice. The first time I saw snow. Gone, yanked forward, like someone flipping through a photo album with a razor. I screamed, and that saved me. Pain pushed it back. I could feel it recoil. They didn't like pain. They liked love, comfort, nostalgia, positive memory. The agony acted like static to them. Tyler shouted, "Fight it. Think of pain. Think of war." And I did. I thought of the riot in New Boston, the fires, the smell of burning hair, the man I killed with a wrench. The keeper flinched. We had something they feared. Not strength, not weapons, scars. They left after a minute, just vanished. No smoke, no doors, and the lights returned to blue. The dead were gone, except Russo. A fine powder remained where he'd stood. Tyler picked up a handful, let it fall through his fingers. "That's what they want," he said, softly. "Not our flesh, not our blood." He looked at me. "They want what makes us human." That night, we made a plan. Not to escape, to resist. If pain was poison to them, we'd become poison. If they fed on beauty weed, become ugly if they wanted. Docile weed, become feral. No more tears, no more compliance. We would starve them, and when they got hungry enough to come down again, we'd show them what real hunger felt like. I learned a long time ago that hunger isn't just in the stomach. There's the hunger for food. Sure, but deeper down, in the bones, there's a different kind. The hunger to survive. The hunger to hit back. The hunger to not be forgotten. And now that hunger had teeth, we stopped eating the food. Not all at once. That would have given us away. But one by one, we began to starve ourselves. Let muscle waste, skin pale, mind slow just enough to register lower on whatever scale they used. To evaluate ripeness. The hollowed didn't care. They kept their routines, pacing their programmed patrols. But I watched the others. Eyes that used to scan the ceiling for exits, now scanned the walls for weaknesses. Hands that used to fold in prayer, now balled into fists. We weren't waiting for rescue anymore. We were building our own damn war. Tyler became our engineer. He didn't sleep. He barely spoke, just worked. Quiet and furious. He rigged the food dispensers to dump early, collected the scraps, and let them rot in a sealed storage hatch we'd pried open beneath one of the sleep platforms. Mold, fermentation, bacteria, biological. Static, he explained. It clouds the scent trails. Their scans work off emotional resonance, but it's tied to scent, heat, chemical release. If we can fog the field, we might be able to mask what we're doing. Lexa scavenged everything. From the medbooth's vials, injection tools, flexible tubing. She mixed concoctions that made you feel nothing for hours. Just a blank sheet inside. They worked. The keepers didn't touch anyone drugged like that. She called it emotional chloroform. We just called it ghost juice. Then came the bones. It started with Annika. She found one of the hollowed dead in the corner near the sleep area. No wounds, no sign of struggle, just expired. Lexa said their bodies weren't designed to last, not after their minds had been scraped clean. Annika dragged the body under her sleep pallet and broke both femurs with a loose metal bar. She handed me one, hollowed eyes and cracked lips. Your turn. And that was the day I became a butcher. The bone was light, dense, sharp once carved. We shaped it into points, shivs, hooks. We braided torn bedding into grips. Rousseau's shiv had been crude. Ours would be art. We waited for a selection cycle this time. They called out the names and we didn't let them go. Instead, we dressed them in ghost juice, painted their bodies with mold and rot extract, fed them the worst memories we could find, loss, rage, violence, and had them walk out like nothing was wrong. 5 minutes later, they returned, alive, shaking, but untouched. It worked. They didn't register as edible. We were becoming invisible. That's when we began the culling, not of ourselves, of them, hollowed. First, quietly, one at a time, we'd drug them with a heavier ghost dose. When they were fully still, we used the bone knives quick, precise. No blood. We left the bodies near vents or dispensers to simulate collapse. The machines removed them automatically. We were cleansing the pen, preparing for the real fight. The keepers grew suspicious. We felt it before we saw it. The lights turned a different shade of blue, colder. Watching. Machines hovered longer before, dropping food. Seams opened in walls we'd never seen before. Tiny floating drones started circling, scanning. Then, on day 63, one of them returned. No name was called. It simply appeared, floated into the room like gravity was optional, taller than before, thinner. Its lattice face glowed red. We froze. Then it spoke. Not in our minds, out loud. Defective. That word again. Like we were malfunctioning tools. It moved toward Mason's sister Marley. Quiet girl, artist. She'd been drawing a mural on the wall with food paste for weeks. A landscape, green hills. A tree. The keeper raised its hand. I didn't think I moved. Knife in hand. My legs were smoke, but my arms were fire. I sprinted. I screamed. I leaped, and I drove the bone blade straight into the glowing center of its chest. It didn't go in deep, but it was enough. There was a sound like glass, screaming underwater. The keeper convulsed. Its threads flickered, flashed. White. Then it exploded. Not in fire, in light. Blinding, hot, soundless. I woke up 10 feet away, skin buzzing, ears ringing. Lexa knelt beside me, eyes wide. You killed it. Not just defeated, killed. And the pen went still. The aftermath was chaos. The lights flickered for hours. Alarms rose and fell in patterns we couldn't understand. But no one came, no hollowed, no keepers, no machines. We had taken a bite out of the God's hand. They bled. That changed everything. We weren't prey anymore. We were predators. We started organizing shifts. Some scavenged, some drilled, some trained others how to hold a blade, how to scream memories strong enough to cause emotional static. We split into cells. Each one had a job. Sabotage, distraction, strike. We had no names for them, just intent. We didn't wait for the next selection. Cycle. We broke the wall first. Using a dozen braided bedsheets, soaked in ghost juice, we formed a sling. Used moldy food paste and bone shards to gum up the seam locks of the wall. When it opened automatically, it jammed. Halfway, just wide enough. We crawled through. We expected more tunnels. Instead, we found the processing wing bodies. So many bodies lined up in pods like cryosleep, but suspended in a gel that pulsed with light. They weren't dead. They were dreaming. Twitching. Faces twisted in agony. In memory, in emotion. The machines surrounded them, draining pulses of light from their heads, feeding it into massive towers of crystalline data, memories, feelings, souls, harvested. Cataloged, packaged, consumed. Somewhere. Something was eating this, and we'd just walked into the kitchen. We didn't run, we destroyed it. The pods were weak, fragile. One kick, one bone blade. They shattered. We released them all. Some died in the process, their minds too far gone. But some woke screaming, and those screams that carried weight. They tore through the quiet, and brought them for keepers. This time they were ready. We fought anyway. Screams as weapons, knives in hand, ghost juice smeared on our skin. Memories searing through our skulls as we hurled rage like wildfire. They struck hard. 2 of ours died in seconds. But then Annika grabbed a power conduit and jammed it into a keeper's spine. It lit up like a star going nova. We learned, adapted, killed. Another. Then another. The last one tried to flee. We tackled it, and we fed it the worst of us. The hunger, the loss, the need to not die forgotten. It burned from the inside out. We returned to the pen victorious, bloodied. Fewer in number, but changed. We weren't livestock anymore. We were wolves, starving, and they'd just left the gate open. I used to dream of green fields, of rain on old metal rooftops, of my mother humming while stirring chili. Now I only dream in red. Because red is what we made this place, and red is what they bleed when you hit them deep enough. The revolt didn't begin with an explosion or a rallying cry. It began with a hallway, a narrow one, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass shoulder to shoulder. After we gutted the processing wing, we followed a pulsing light buried in the floor tiles, a power conduit, maybe a neural feed line. It led us away from the pens, away from the domes, into the mechanical underbelly, the guts of the farm. This place was massive, a labyrinth of silver corridors, glowing tubes, pulsing walls, like veins made of chrome and sorrow. It breathed. You could hear it. Hiss in, pulse, hiss out. Alive, and hungry. The further we went, the colder it got. No more beds, no med booths, no food, Just endless walls and the faint sound of sobbing. Not human. Not quite. We found the holding cells next. Cylindrical rooms. Dozens. Inside them were humans naked, suspended in shimmering liquid, motionless but conscious. Their eyes darted. Mouths moved without sound. Electrodes drilled into the base of their skulls. We'd seen the feeding process before, but this was different. This was storage. Emotions sealed in a jar. Why keep them alive? Lexa whispered. Tyler studied one tank. I think they're addicted to us, to what we feel. He pointed to one of the machines nearby, smaller, insectile, scraping data from a console. They don't just harvest, they replay, over and over. A girl in one of the tubes jerked violently. Her pulse surged. The monitors lit up like fireworks. She just remembered something painful, I said. They're feeding, Tyler confirmed. We cracked the tanks. The fluid boiled off in seconds, probably destabilized by air contact. Some survivors could walk, others couldn't, but their eyes burned with something fierce. They joined us without question. By day 3, we had a map, drawn in blood and food paste. The central tower, what we called the spine, was at the core of the complex. That's where the keepers moved in and out of, gliding on gravity lifts, passing between levels like angels descending a hollow heaven. If we wanted to end this, really end this, we had to strike there. We don't kill the guards anymore, Annika said. We go for the brain. Problem was, we didn't know if there was one. No leader, no command structure, just patterns. SYSTEMSA hive, a network. Doesn't matter, I told her. Everything bleeds if you push hard enough. So we built the push. We weaponized memory. It was Tyler's idea. Every human remembers trauma, pain, rage, some more vividly than others. So we paired the emotionally damaged with the strongest. One remembered, one stabbed, one screamed, one burned. We turned grief into gunpowder. The first attack on the spine went bad. We lost 11 people. They came in suits. This time, not keepers, not hollowed. These were something else. Hybrid machines. Half-organic eyes, like spinning black. Lenses fast, smart. We couldn't match them in strength, but we weren't trying to. We just needed to distract while they focused on the screamers. Lexa, Mason's sister Marley, and 2 others slipped inside the data chamber. They called it the Echo Pit, a vast open cylinder filled with floating cubes, memories encoded as light, thousands, maybe millions. Each cube pulsed with feeling, some bright, some dim, one so red it made Lexa vomit. The others began smashing them, one by one, like smashing glass hearts. We heard the scream across the entire dome. It wasn't human, it wasn't machine, it was them, the real them, the architects of this farm. Their agony felt like your spine turning to fire. But we didn't stop. We fed on that scream, because finally they were feeling us. Everything after that turned wild. They stopped hiding. Keepers flooded the spine, slashing, disintegrating, scrambling to preserve what was left of their data. But we were already deep, already spreading, one memory at a time. It was Lexa who reached the control tower first. She used a hollowed's corpse as a ladder, climbed a moving platform, rode it, all the way to the top. The others followed. I came last, out of breath, covered in sweat and gore. I saw her standing there, in front of a pulsing core, the size of a small car. A swirling orb of red, blue, and gold alive with emotion. That's it, she said. The heart. The others hesitated. What if it kills everyone? Marley asked. Lexa smiled. Then we take them with us. She jammed the bone blade into the heart, and the world changed. The lights died, the gravity buckled, the floor fell out from under us and then slammed back into place. Alarms, sirens, flashes of death, memories swirling like ash in a wind tunnel. We ran. No more tactics. No more plans. just flight. The keepers screamed, this time, in fear. Their structure collapsed around them. Memory cubes cracked. Dream vats spilled. Humans staggered out, wild-eyed sobbing, free. We reached the lower levels and found the transport. Bays. Giant disc pads covered in runes and glyphs. Clearly alien. One lit up as we approached. Tyler stepped on it first. Disappeared in a flash of blue dot. Then, Annika. Then, Lexa. Then me. I landed in dirt. Real dirt. I looked up the sky. Blue dot. Clouds. Wind stung. It smelled. Trees. Grass. Life. I dropped to my knees and screamed. Not in pain, not in hunger, in relief. We don't know how many made it. But we know this. They tried to farm us. They tried to hollow us out. They thought memory was their resource. But they forgot something. Humans don't just feel. We remember. And now, so do they. Because we burned their farm to the ground. And there are more of them. Out there. So we build. We train. We wait. Because when they come again, we won't be livestock. We'll be famine. The survivors called it the seeding. We landed in burst small groups, scattered across Earth and the outer colonies, naked, broken, burning with rage and memory. At first, the world thought we were mad. Just more trauma cases from the abductions, PTSD, gone viral. Conspiracy drivel. Until they saw the brands. Each of us came back with a mark, right over the heart, a burn, a glowing sigil that pulsed in the dark like a heartbeat. Their symbol, proof. We were cattle, and proof we'd escaped. That shut the world up fast. At first, the governments tried to keep it quiet. Rehabilitation centers, security lockdowns whispered, tests behind closed doors. But we wouldn't play livestock anymore. One of us walked into a press conference in Geneva, tore open his shirt, showed the mark, and shouted into every camera lens in the world, "You are not safe." We were not the first. Then he detonated a memory bomb, data cube salvaged from the alien farm, loaded with 3 days' worth of archived trauma from the vats. The explosion was psychic, not physical. 10,000 people felt what he felt, what we all felt, harvest. Slaughter. That silence afterward was louder than any war. Earth changed fast. Governments scrambled. The UN collapsed. In its place, the Resistance Accord, not a nation, a species-wide pact. They called it the Hunger Doctrine. If they wanted to feed on you, we'd show them famine. We became something else, not just survivors, not just rebels. We became carvers. Weaponized memory smiths. Soldiers who used pain and loss like ammunition. Lexa became one of the first instructors. Your scars are your guns now, she told recruits. You remember losing your father in the blast. Good. Channel that. Shape it. Fire it. They built weapons that ran on emotional resonance, not lasers. Not bullets. Echo bombs. Memory grenades that tore through keeper systems like wildfire. And I became a scout. We didn't wait for another farm to be built. We went hunting. The first world we found was small, to domes orbiting a red dwarf. When we touched down, it was quiet, too quiet, just rows of empty chambers, all clean and waiting. They were getting ready to seed again. We blew the entire station with a single grief bomb cube filled with Lexa's rawest pain. The moment she found her brother's body in the vat, the scream alone cracked the walls. The blast turned the dome inside. Out, nothing survived. We left a message in the dust. We are famine, and we remember. Then came the bigger targets. We raided transport ships carrying fresh seed stock. Freed thousands. Every ship left behind was reprogrammed and aimed straight back at their breeding moons, overloaded and rigged to detonate on impact. We weren't just freeing humans, we were infecting their memory systems with corrupted emotion, and they couldn't stop it, because they'd trained us too well. They taught us to focus, to process pain, to keep memories alive. They made us valuable. They made us weapons. One by one, Their farms fell. Each time, they adapted. They tried to feed faster, cruder, sloppier, but every shortcut left cracks, and into those cracks we poured wrath. I led a raid on what we called the Archive Tree, a floating fortress orbiting a binary sun, its entire root system composed of live human dreams, a fortress of us. Our pain, our joy, our lives fed to them like honey. I found a cube there, one that pulsed different than the rest. When I touched it, I saw her, my mother, laughing, stirring chili, humming in the kitchen. My last memory before the abduction. I broke, dropped to my knees. Then I rewound it, played it over and over, let it flood me, and when the keepers came rushing in to stop me, I broadcast it, let it spread across every surface, into every conduit, into their entire network. They recoiled like rats from fire, because in that memory was hope, the one thing they couldn't digest. It killed the station, and it changed me. I realized rage was good, grief was fuel, but hope was the virus. Hope couldn't be tracked, couldn't be cataloged. It spread, mutated, outran their systems. So we began carrying joy into battle. Old wedding photos, lullabies, laughing fits from the age of 6. We wrapped them in shrapnel, called them sun grenades. We dropped one into their capital node. It burned for 3 days. We never even saw what they looked like. Just the screams. Lexa died a year into the war, but not before transmitting her final memory into a weapon. The cube is still being passed from squad to squad. We all carry a piece of her now. She's everywhere. Like rage, like famine, like us. I don't remember what Earth looks like anymore. Not exactly. I dream of it sometimes, and when I do, I dream of something else, something impossible, a future, a world where no child wakes up in a dome, where no memory is milked like fuel, where we can feel without being fed on. They tried to farm us like cattle, but they forgot something fundamental. Cattle don't dream. We do, and our dreams, they kill.